Hello, in this video I will show you how to use the structural framing commands in Allplan. For this I will create an example factory building made out of steel frame. So let's get started. First I'll show you how I set up the building structure using the factory building and a steel structure subfolder where I put a few different drawing files. So let's start with the first one, which is positioning the axis. As you can see here, I have the first button, create X grid, and in here there's a new window which shows that I can change the rotation angle, layer, color, line and pen, and then I can change the X direction axis. So I chose 5 spacings of 7 meters, so 6 axes altogether, and at the angle 90 degrees. And in Y direction I have 2 spacings, that means 3 axes 10 meters apart. In the Z direction actually I'm gonna have 4 axes. 3 spacings are gonna be 2 meter apart, and then there's going to be additional X on the top, which is just going to be 1 meter from the top one. In the label section I can change the text parameter, color, border, offset, numbering, starting number or letter, and orientation from left to right and from bottom to top. Here we go. I position my grid and I can see in the Z direction the height of the grid. So let's start with putting some steel frame elements. The next button is a structural framing column. In here I can choose between different cross sections. I can do a rectangular cross section, circular one, or I can choose something from the extensive Allplan library. Allplan library has a number of different steel cross sections, and I'll start by using the here 600 element for a column, and I will place it in here in the first 2 axes. How to adjust the height? Simply I can just grab it and pull it up by a certain value, or I can just use a tracking line and connect it to the grid that I created before. I will create another one. This time I can change the height right here in the box. This is useful if you're only placing 1 or 2 elements, but if you're doing a little more complex building like this one, I strongly recommend to create a roof plane. To create a roof plane, first I'm gonna choose a roof plane drawing file, and then I'm going to go to the Elements tab and click on the roof frame command. In here I can choose between different types of roof. For this example I'm going to use a gable hip roof, and I will choose a 7-degree angle, which is 12.27%. I'll use the eaves height at 6 meter and the top level of 7.5 meter, or where the roof slopes meets. To create a roof plane, it's pretty easy. All I need to do is click on the bottom left corner and the top right. Press escape to create a rectangle, and now I have to determine the slopes. So this is my first slope, and now you can see on the cross section what is happening, and the second slope. If I would choose those two, I would create a complete hip roof. Close the command, press escape, and now I will switch to the planes tab here. So what I want to do, I want to place the roof plane that I just created and put it inside my plane manager. To do that, I will choose insert option. I will choose the roof plane that I created. I can change the name, but I'll just press apply. So right now, those two columns are still at a certain height that I placed them. To connect them to the roof plane, all I need to do is I need to go to the steel frame and I need to assign planes. I will choose the ground floor, plus I can see here a new box, which is a roofscape that I just created. I will confirm it, and now I can see my two columns coming up to the roof plane and higher up. Higher up is just because of this offset. Once I confirm this offset, the column goes all the way up to the top of the roof plane, and it's also cut nicely in the same slope that I determined for the roof. Now I will continue with placing another column. This time I'm going to choose a bigger one, which I'm going to place in the middle, in the axis B. Again, after I clear my offset, I can see that the column is cut nicely and have the apex here on top of the roof. The next step here is creating a beam between those two columns. And to do that, I'm going to use that third button, where again I can choose different cross sections, and I'm going to use a library and position a different element. Let's use EP 500. Now, when I start positioning the beam, I need to be careful about the reference point to be in the middle. And I can immediately see what is happening on the section, and I'll explain that in a moment. So first I want to do, this is a construction method of a horizontal beam, and that one is connected to the roof plane. To change that, I can use the inclined method, and here I can choose the custom height at the top on both sides and clear the offsets. And choose a different reference point. Down here I can see that this beam is not fitted perfectly in the column. To change that, all we need to do, click on one of those buttons, beam ending and start. So the first one is active, it's perpendicular. The second one is horizontal, which is not correct one. And the third one is vertical. So now I have a perfect vertical cut on one side, and I do the same on the other side. Now that I placed it, I can choose those two elements, and I can use a mirror command to place them on the other side of the building. After that, I select all elements, and I'm going to use a copy command, and I'm going to create 5 copies the same distance across all other axes. For the next step, I will create connections between those columns. For that, again, I'm going to use a beam command and choose slightly smaller profile, and I'm going to use a horizontal construction method. And place the column, the beam between those two columns. Again, all I need to do is change the reference point where I put my geometry in. I can do exactly the same in my first X, and I copy and mirror this beam to the other side. Now I can select all 3 of them and do the same way as I did before. Copy them four more times across the building. Now in the next step, I can create some other elements in the building. For example, I can change my drawing files to cranes, and I'll try to position a crane in the building. I can find different elements in the library, and under industrial construction I can find this smart part crane. I'll use the bottom left corner to position it, and in here I can see I have different attributes that I can change. For example, I will choose the rail length to fit in perfectly within my building. Press escape, and the next thing I have to do is position the crane to the correct height. To do that, I can just simply move it up and position it so it doesn't hit the beams on top when it's moving up and down. If I double click on the crane, I can see I can change also a lot of different attributes, which I'm not gonna go into them at the moment. To use an element where the crane's gonna be moving, we actually have in the library crane rails. So I can grab a crane rail and I can position it where it needs to be. So at the moment I can see here that this rail is positioned way too low, and that is because the cranes doesn't have the assigned planes. So now I'm going to assign the plane like I've done before. And now I have the crane rail which is way up too high up here. So I need to change the height. I can measure from the bottom and I can use the offset. Let's just try out. That's it. To position the rail on something, I'm going to put another beam underneath. Let's use something like that. And again I'm going to change the height, and this time I can actually measure the height from beneath the rail, copy the measurement, and change the height from the bottom level to around 4 meters. And I can see perfectly fits. the crane rail. Of course I could be positioning additional angles down here which would hold the profile, but at the moment just gonna use it like it is. I'm gonna use a copy and mirror command to place this on the other side, and now all elements together with the crane, mirror it to the other bay. Down here, just maybe for the presentation, I can move the crane a little bit and I can have a view of the structure. In the next step, I'm going to switch off the cranes and I'm going to try to create purlins on the roof. I'm going to use structural framing beam again, and I'm going to choose a different profile. This time I'm going to use the Z profile and place it horizontally in the beginning of the roof. Again, we can see that the profile is not in the correct height, and to fix this I need to assign the planes, especially the roofscape. Now it is in the correct position, and all I need to do is rotate it by the same angle that I have done that with the roof. Now that I placed it, I can create a few more copies. The easy way to select and copy those purlins is to click them on the right mouse button and change the drawing file status, isolate this drawing file and put all others in the reference mode. This way I can freely select everything without being bothered with other elements, but still use the mid-axis for the mirroring command. Once I placed my purlins, I can create a roof cover. So first, let's switch to the roof drawing file, then we go to the elements and we create a roof covering. I could use the detection area method, but this one is easy, just to click 2 points. In the roof, at the moment I have 3 different layers. For example, I have the bottom layer of 20 mil. Let's say that it's some kind of a thick steel, have 10 centimeter of insulation and another on top. Press OK, and I can see my roof covering, and I used this material to represent the galvanized roof. If I switch back on the cranes and have a better view, this is how easy it is to create structural framing in Allplan and also cover it with a roof. And the next step would be creating a facade, windows, doors, and so on. That it is for today. Thank you.